Hello there, thanks very much for being with us. So, as we've been hearing, women, children, whole families are among the hundreds of thousands who have fled the city of Mosul after it was taken over by the Islamist militant group ISIS. The Iraqi army and police are said to have abandoned their positions in the city after 4 days of violent clashes. Now, let me show you. As you can see here, convoys of ISIS gunmen swept through Mosul on Tuesday. There they go. They said they'd been liberating the city. The group comprises Sunni Muslims, and they pose a huge challenge to Iraq's Shia Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki. He is now asking Iraq's parliament to declare a state of emergency. Let's get some more details now on who these militants are and what exactly it is that they're fighting for. The name ISIS, well, that stands for the Jihadist Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, abbreviated to the letters ISIS. The group's relatively young. It was formed in April 2013 as an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. But in just over a year, it's already been responsible for scores of deadly attacks across Iraq and also, of course, Syria. There, it's among the most potent rebel forces opposing President Assad. What are the motivations behind their attacks? Well, they say that they are fighting for an Islamic state that would straddle the borders of both countries. And if I show you the map now, you can see that they do control swathes of territory in Syria and western Iraq, effectively. Earlier this year, the group stormed the cities of Fallujah and Ramadi, which gives them effective control over the huge western Anbar province. And then in Syria, they operate from the eastern edge of the city of Aleppo, and they have a regional base in Raqqa. Now, a short time ago, I spoke to Prashant Rao, who's the bureau chief for the Agence France Presse news agency in Iraq. He was here in London with me. He explained how ISIS has become a powerful militant force in the region.
ISIS is widely seen as an incredibly potent force in the region now, on par, if not higher, in terms of its capabilities and operational capacity than Al-Qaeda's front groups in Iraq. It controls, as you said earlier, an enormous amount of territory in Syria and increasingly in Iraq. And one of the sort of problems that's going to come from this is, in fact, that they've seized a lot of military vehicles from the Iraqi army, and that's going to increase their military capacity as time goes on.
What's strange almost is that, you know, we've heard about ISIS fighting in Syria, very potent force there, and then all of a sudden they kind of sweep in. I mean, they took Fallujah and Ramadi in Iraq earlier this year. Now they've taken the really big city, Mosul, and all of a sudden they have carved out this territory that they were seeking. How could that possibly have happened?
Well, for months, sort of senior American officials and senior Western officials have been warning that this is, you know, not a force to be sort of taken lightly, that they have tremendous paramilitary capacity. They're not just, you know, your sort of run-of-the-mill militant group. And they've been issuing these warnings for a long time. And ISIS...
Has the Iraqi government just been ignoring those warnings?
Well, the Iraqi government has also been making those warnings, but there's a difference in terms of the capacity of the Iraqi government and the Iraqi army to handle those warnings and to address them, as we can see by the fact that Fallujah has been out of government control since the beginning of the year. So as a result, I think it comes down to the fact that, you know, by want of its name, the Islamic State, it wants to control territory, and that's its goal. Unlike other militant groups that have perhaps different aims, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant wants more and more territory in these two countries.
So you now have this Sunni militant force versus a Shia government in Iraq. Is the country verging on collapse here?
I mean, it's very sort of early to go that far. Certainly this is really troubling that a sovereign state can lose this much territory this quickly. But, you know, the Iraqi army is a big army. Of course, these past few days have raised fresh questions about their capabilities. But the security forces are 1 million strong. They have Hellfire missiles, M1 tanks, they're getting F-16s. So they do have sort of growing military capacity, and the Kurdish region to the north has some as well. So, you know, it's maybe too early to talk about that. We should be talking perhaps a little bit more about the response that could come if it does.
And briefly, we just were hearing from the Nineveh governor, the governor of the province of Nineveh, who was complaining that the Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki had pretty much ignored warnings about the inability of security forces to defend Mosul.
That's a persistent sort of theme from Sunni leaders, and so the governor of Nineveh is a Sunni leader. His brother is a sort of virulent opponent of the prime minister, the Speaker of Parliament. And this has been a persistent theme from them, that military leaders and others have been giving warnings that the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant is making advances and wants this territory, and the Prime Minister has ignored it. How much that's true is, a matter for debate, because also there is the question of capacity of the Iraqi security forces to address these warnings and respond to them.
And an issue of sectarian politics?
I mean, that's always potentially an issue, whether or not it is sectarian politics or simply just politics. In terms of the Prime Minister wanting to retain his post, there was an election 6 weeks ago in which he's trying to keep on for a third term, and how to separate sectarian politics from just regular politics is a little bit difficult to do.